Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, getting ready here for the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast episode number 25. This is entitled, this is the one about why Bruce Lee should be your role model. So some of what I'm going to cover today, I'm sure a lot of you out there in the I Love Jeet Kune world and the Jeet Kune and the martial art world, this is some of this is not going to be any broadcast stuff that you've never heard of before. But one of the reasons why this whole idea and this whole topic came up is because I still get questions from people about there's still people out there who have no idea why Bruce Lee is so well known. And then there are also people out there who, like, here's a funny one. So somebody recently asked me, where's the video of the fight between Bruce Lee and Wong Jack Man, right? I guess this is somebody who just heard of that new, well, not new anymore, but that recent movie, the Birth of a Dragon. So I guess they didn't put all the pieces together, right, and realize that the fight with Wong Jack Man was, I think, 1964, right? And so that was before the era of the smartphone where everybody had a video camera that they could broadcast to the internet, quite spontaneously. So I want to talk today about why Bruce Lee should be your role model, which is not to insinuate that he is not for very many of you. Somebody on the I Love Jeet Kune membership group already said to me, you can be sure Bruce Lee already is, right? Okay. The very name Bruce Lee conjures up for both people in and outside of the martial art world, right? Images of, lightning fast punches and kicks and rock hard muscles and footwork and a blazing intensity that demands attention, right? And so just on that kind of basis, it starts to give you a hint as to why it is that a personality such as Bruce Lee should be something that you emulate and should be something that becomes a role model for you, right? Even people who only know the Little Dragon from his movies, right? They find his amazing skill to be, I'll use a hyperbolic term, right? They find his skill to be so mind-blowing that they think that he must have had all of the right talents and all of the right opportunities to get where he did. Now, those of us who have gone a little bit deeper into the story of Bruce Lee, right? The life story, the history, and what have you, we know different, right? So yes, it's true that Bruce Lee had great potential locked within him, but some of those people who don't know about it might be surprised to learn about the massive obstacles that he had to face, let's say, before unleashing, I'll use another hyperbolic term, before unleashing the giant within him, right? So one reason why I think that's important is because all of us have some kind of potential, some kind of giant, right, within us. And so using Bruce Lee as an example, I know for a number of people, a number of Jeet Kune associates of mine, I know that using Bruce Lee as an example, using Bruce Lee as a role model has done a lot to improve the quality of their lives, right? So then the question is, well, how do you explode that the growth of that talent, right? So I think if there's anyone who's been there and done that and can give us clues to the answer, for me, on an individual basis, it's Bruce Lee. So we're going to talk a little bit about him and what he had to overcome and why he's a pretty decent role model. Cool? All right, so here are some things that some people might not... okay, yes, actually, Mick Wilson says... there's two role models right behind me. And that's true, Mick. That's exactly why these two are up as my backdrop. And Gary, no, I'm old, Gary, you know, I'm 451 years old, but I'm not old enough to have known Bruce Lee personally, right? Okay, so to get back to things that some people might not be aware of about Bruce Lee. One, he never finished college, right? He grew up as a teenager in Hong Kong, and he was kind of a street fighting punk, right? And so after his parents were told that his next altercation might lead him to some jail time, his parents decided to send him back to the United States to take advantage of his U.S. citizenship, right? Okay, so it's late 1959, and he lands in San Francisco, and then I don't think he spent very long in San Francisco, and then he makes his way up to Seattle, where he enrolls in, I think first it was Edison Technical College or something, and then it was University of Washington, right? In 1964, at the end of his junior year, he dropped out of college to dedicate himself to expanding his martial arts school, because he had started the thing in Seattle, right? And then there was the thing that continued on with James Lee in Oakland, right? So Bruce Lee, in doing that, joined the ranks of people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Michael Dell, right? And I think even Jeff Bezos, right? Powerhouses in the business world, and people who never finished university and went on to become massive successes later on in life. So I am not advocating that you shouldn't go to university, right? But what I'm saying is that Bruce Lee is among one of those who never let not having, because I'm sure you've come across people who sometimes are all down on themselves because they never finished college, right? I'm one of those people who never finished college. I never even went to college. I left high school, even though where I grew up in Barbados, I went to a place called Harrison College, because high school in the British system is sometimes equated to junior college or early college in the U.S. system, right? So a lot of times people ask me, where did I go to college? And I have to tell them that I didn't. I went from high school right into the airline industry, and then from the airline industry into full-time Jeet Kune. That's it. That's the story of my life. Very short, done. Right? Another thing about Bruce Lee, he was an avid reader, right? And I know that a lot of you guys have seen. I gotta pull something here, so excuse the bumpiness, right? I know a lot of you guys have seen stuff like this before, right? There's a ton of these photographs on the internet, right? So Bruce Lee was an avid reader, had a vast library of books, right? And I've heard from Sifu Dan Insano that one of his favorite things to do was to scour the bookshops, right? Looking for more and more books, right? So he had not only an appetite for books on martial arts, obviously, but he also devoured books on the personal growth writers of his day, people like Napoleon Hill and Norman Vincent Peale and Clement Stone. Now, from a very rare video that I have, I saw. Let me try to find it here for you. Right. So this is a snapshot. Right. I'm sorry I don't have the color version available of this. Right. But let me read some of the titles on this here. So of course, there's the Tao Te Ching, right? But then there's a book titled On Aggression. Then there's another one called The Age of Analysis, right? Then there's a whole series of books by D.T. Suzuki. If you recognize that name, you know, he's a big-time author on Zen, right? Then up here, here's another one. So there's the one called The Age of Analysis, and then there's the one called Logic, right? And let me see if I can find another one here. Then there's one, I actually have this book myself. It's called Man and His Symbols, right? And then up here in this section, listen to these titles. The Film Experience, the Encyclopedia of Film and Television, and the work of the film director, And I think this one is the Handbook of Film Production, right? So with a list of titles like that, you know that Bruce Lee was educating himself, obviously, beyond just martial arts. There was philosophy, there was, like I said, the self-improvement, but there was also the work of being a film producer and a film director. And we can see the results of that in projects like the Way of the Dragon and Enter the Dragon. Then there's this one here. I love this particular one. The titles are The Treasury of Surefire Selling Tips. Right? Then there's another one called Big League Salesmanship. Right? You guys should go online when you hear these titles and look them up and verify that I'm not pulling your leg. Right? This is actual stuff. Right? How to talk your way to, I can't see what it says there, right? And then the last one is the power of creative selling, right? So we know that that Bruce Lee had a huge interest, right? Here's the one that I'm most interested in. It's this one right here, Think and Grow Rich. So everybody will recognize that as being one of the best known books, and I've talked about this on previous broadcasts, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that is the one where, oh look, there's this one called Mental Magnetism, right? There's a section here on the Zen Dictionary, the I Ching, the Quran interpreted, Beyond Conflict, I mean, just a whole bunch of things. The Knack of Selling Yourself, The Amazing Results of Positive Thinking, that's a Norman Vincent Peale thing, right? How to Be Rich by J. Paul Getty, right? I mean, and The Master Keys to Riches, all that stuff, right? The thing about the Napoleon Hill one is that everybody knows that is where the My Definite Chief Aim thing comes from, right? Where Bruce Lee talks about, I, Bruce Lee, will be the first highest paid Oriental superstar in the United States. In return, I will give the most exciting performances and render the best of quality in the capacity of an actor. Starting in 1970, I will achieve world fame, and from then onward till the end of 1980, I will have in my possession $10 million. I will live the way I please and achieve inner harmony and happiness. If you go online and you look that up, there are people who will tell you that is actually a perfect rendition of how a definite chief aim should be written. You will also find out that different people along the way have called it different things, right? There's definiteness of purpose, there's definite chief aim, but a really interesting one, because of the two previous broadcasts, we were talking about the business of Jeet Kune, right? And how to achieve, let's call it commercial success in Jeet Kune. And there are some people who will tell you that the concept of definite chief aim can actually be considered a mission statement for a business, or a mission statement even for yourself, right? So obviously Bruce Lee was not just a reader. He followed the advice given by these great writers and resulted in things like definite chief aim. To talk about The Birth of a Dragon again, right? Everyone knows that one of Bruce Lee's greatest achievements, right, the creation of Jeet Kune, came from that less than a perfect victory, right? On it's in here, right? Every week, I tell you guys to check something from Sifu Dan's book. Page 40, right? It talks about the fight with Wong Jack Man. The paragraph says Wong Jack Man had recently arrived from Hong Kong and was looking to establish a name for himself, right? So there is some contention about that, whether or not it's really true that there was this thing about not teaching Chinese people or what have you, right? I don't know, again, because I was not there, so I can't really say what it was. But I do know that I mean, as authoritative a source as Linda Lee Codwell kind of repeats the story that is in Sifu Dan's book, that the challenge did include something about his teaching of non-Chinese people, right? So there's issues. There's always issues, and one of the other major issues that some people have with Bruce Lee is like, well, what's his fight record, right? We've talked about this before also. As if the only contribution that you can make, right, to people who you pass away and there are people living on beyond you, the only contribution you can make in the martial art world, right, is to have a fight record. I don't recall years and years ago when that was how you measured the greatness of a martial artist. Have you ever heard anybody ask about what is the fight record, the official fight record, the professional fight record, the MMA fight record for Miyamoto Musashi? Have you ever heard people ask what's the fight record for Gishin Funakoshi, right? What is the fight record for Tetsuo Shimabuku, right? What is the fight record for Masutatsu Oyama, right? What is the fight record for Hidetaka Nishiyama, right? All these people that if you, well, I guess it depends on the era that you're from, right? I know all those names because these people were to a certain degree my martial art heroes, and you'll notice that most of them are Japanese as opposed to Chinese Kung Fu, simply because the world was introduced to the Japanese art a lot sooner than it was introduced to the Chinese art. And again, Bruce Lee was one of the trailblazers in introducing the world at large to Chinese martial art, right? So, I don't know, I went off on that tangent, right? I'm sorry about that, right? The point that I was trying to make about the fight with Wang Jackman is that most people are happy to just beat somebody. Bruce Lee, I'm sure he was happy to win the fight, but he also used the fight as a springboard for more self-analysis, right? And then he went internal, as you could call it, right? Sought out more sophisticated training methods, especially for cardiovascular endurance, right? And then went on to dissect the martial arts for the stuff that he found to be the most useful. And then in time, developed his own powerful and profound expression of the martial art. And that's what brings all of us here to Facebook Live, on this fine Wednesday afternoon, right? Here's another thing that happened to Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee had opportunities stolen from him. You would think that in Hollywood, after the success, even though it was one season, but I mean, his name did almost become household, right? As Kato in the Green Hornet, right? You would think that somebody with Bruce Lee's outstanding skill would have everybody banging on his door, right? But not really, because after the initial success of Green Hornet, there wasn't really that much work available for him. So that was the era, that was the period where he guest starred on things like the TV shows like Ironside, Blondie, Here Comes the Bride. Then there was the 4-episode arc, I think, on Longstreet, and then there was the thing with James Garner. Somebody tell me, Marlowe, right? Yeah, the detective series, right? And then there was that glimmer of hope. See, Gary Bedoz knows where I'm going with this, because there was the glimmer of hope from Warner Brothers when they contacted him about doing a TV series about martial art, right? And we know that was right up Bruce Lee's alley, and he helped the studio out a lot. But in the end, what happened? The bastards rejected him for being too Chinese, right? And the TV series Kung Fu premiered with David Carradine, right, Gary? With David Carradine as the star, and not Bruce Lee, right? But again, the reason why I'm telling you this is not to rehash the history that all you guys know. This is to point out what it is that Bruce Lee did in the face of all these obstacles, because a lot of us have, we have colleagues. I mean, it happens to us as individuals too, right? But way too many people in the world, right, give up really easily. Now, as martial artists, we train real hard to be a cut above what regular human beings who do not train in martial art, it's something that they never experience. We experience this stuff because every day we are doing something to literally push ourselves forward, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally or spiritually, right? And that's why this whole topic of Bruce Lee and the role model thing came about, right? So I just talked about training every day. We know that Bruce Lee trained incessantly. It was like a daily thing, right? Dan Inosanto has told me it's not uncommon to find Bruce Lee practicing, punching. Actually, I'll show you something. So it's in this book, right? The Art of Expressing the Human Body. There's 20 pages of this. It's a chapter entitled Days in the Life, right? Excerpts from Bruce Lee's personal training diaries, right? So let's see. In the very first one, this is Monday, January 1st, 1968, right? It says, from 12 noon until 12:45, punching 500 punches and 300 finger jabs. So that's Monday, January 1st, 1968, right? On Tuesday, January 2nd, 1968, guess what? Punches 500, finger jab 400. But he just did that stuff the day before. So how come he's doing it the next day, right? You see where I'm going with this, right? Wednesday, January 3rd, it's back fist 500, finger jab 500. And there was one, I forget, I didn't make a note of it, but there is one on those 20 pages, right? So page 186 to page 206. There is one where in one day, and I think it might have been one session, he hit 1,000 punches, right? So I guess that's where the whole what's that popular internet thing about fairing the man with the, it's such a cliche now, I hate using it. The man with the 1,000 kicks or the 10,000 times or whatever, right? Okay. So we know that Bruce Lee trained incessantly, but what we also know is that he suffered this devastating back injury, right, from the Good Morning exercise. Right, this was 1970, I think. The Green Hornet had been canceled, right? Finances were tight, and he kind of failed to warm up properly, and so he sustained this injury. And so as a result, the doctors said, forget martial art because you'll probably never kick again, right? So to someone who once said that everything that he had learned, he learned from martial art, obviously that would be, a devastating blow, right? So with the worry of providing for your family and that kind of stuff, that's what's bearing down on him. And all he can do is lay flat on his bed for the next 3 months, and then for 3 months be confined indoors. So what does Bruce Lee do? He goes, okay, if I can't work out the body, at least I can work out the mind. And so it was in those 6 months, this is my understanding, that he wrote furiously, penning down his own thoughts and then methods of the martial arts that he loved so much. So in 6 months' time, he had written, let me see, I think this might be it. He had written, it says 8 2-inch volumes of notes, right? And somebody, Gary will probably know the answer to this. Those 8 2-inch volumes, did they become the commentaries on martial way, or did they become the Tao of Jeet Kune? That's one thing that I didn't have the time to research. But I do know that there is this famous picture of the commentary, volume 1 and volume 2, the commentaries of on the martial way, right? So, along with all that, Bruce Lee was probably using his mind, right? Because he refused to believe that he could not heal. Okay, thanks, Gary. So that did become the Tao, right? And because if you understand all of the personal development stuff that he was involved in, he would obviously have been an avid believer that as I think it's Neville Goddard would say, that your thoughts can create your reality, right? So after those 6 months, he starts working out again, right, moderately, and then he resumes teaching later on. And it said that back injury would remain a source of pain for the rest of his life. But if this thing happened in 1970, and then he went on to do The Big Boss, right, in 71, and then between 71 and 73 to do Fist of Fury, to do Way of the Dragon, to start Game of Death, to finish up with Enter the Dragon. People who do not know that Bruce Lee had a back injury would probably be surprised to find that out when you look at his performances in those films, right? So, what do you think? I'm gonna end with this, right, guys? What do you think was the key to Bruce Lee's amazing success? So obviously there can be a ton of different answers, right? At the beginning, I asked you, what if you already had the same potential for greatness as Bruce Lee in anything, not just in martial arts? So if the question is, how do I unlock this potential for greatness that I have inside of me? What are the keys that I use to unlock this? So I think that who better than Bruce Lee to answer this? So let me find the quote for you, and then I should probably put this quote out there along with this video. So here's what it says: dedication, absolute dedication, is what keeps one ahead. A sort of indomitable, obsessive dedication, and the realization that there is no end or limit to this, because life is simply an ever-growing process, an ever-renewing process. So I'm going to read it to you again. Dedication, absolute dedication, is what keeps one ahead. A sort of indomitable, obsessive dedication, and the realization that there is no end or limit to this, because life is simply an ever-growing process, an ever-renewing process. That, to me, spells it out. That's everything, right? So, that's it for today. On Friday at 12:30, the second show, the Jeet Kune Dialogues. This is episode 4. We kind of messed up with my seeing Chris Kent. I'm working on getting him back on the show, but we'll be talking to Mark Mills, very accomplished Jeet Kune guy out of Lexington, South Carolina. Right, this is Friday at 12:30. We'll be a little bit earlier than usual, right? And that's it, guys. Be sure to check us out. Volume 1, Volume 2 is coming. Volume 1 of the I Love Jeet Kune Quick Skill series, available at ilovejeetkundo.com. But let me just finish with this. If you are one of the authorized, let's say, or Jeet Kune lineage people in your area, right? I think that we have this role model, and everybody else in the in their martial art family does it. We have a role model who transcends just the martial arts. There are people outside of the martial art world who hold Bruce Lee in very high esteem. I think that we have to be sure, as Jeet Kune people, that we do the same thing, that we hold him in as high a level of esteem, and so that we hold our own heads up high and we loudly and proudly proclaim our legacy in the martial art world, right? So don't just admire Bruce Lee, let Bruce Lee inspire you also. All right, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. You guys have a good rest of the day. Take care.